You're listening to Big World Network.
Delroy vs. the Yshtari, Episode 3, Planetfall. Written and read by Berin Stevens. Okay, so my education never included information about space travel. That was one of the main reasons I bought the Starship piloting chip to put into Minx. But there I was, faced with crashing into a planet with no idea how to stop the ship. So, Minx, how do we keep from being sucked into the gravity well? The main engine, sir. Minx stopped spinning as he tried to calm himself down. But I just fried the power cables. It seemed like a good idea a minute ago. How long do we have? I looked at the scanner and saw that at our current velocity, we'd be crashing into the planet in about 5 minutes. It does appear the planet has a breathable atmosphere, Mink said, looking over my shoulder. What good is a breathable atmosphere if we're smashed to bits against it? Oh, good point, sir. A whine issued from his speaker, and he resumed his panic circling around the room. Not helping, I said. Minx, come on, pull it together. What about the landing jets? Do we still have control of those? I pushed the buttons on the panel that worked them. Nothing happened. Minx stopped and said in a wavering voice, There should be some manual controls on the jets themselves, sir, according to my ship's schematics. Fine, where are they? There is an access tunnel under the engine room. I took off back to the engine room, saying, Okay, you can go back to panicking now. He did. Once there, I found a grate in the floor. I lifted it out and saw the tunnel that ran into the dark underbelly of the ship. I hated small, dark areas. I swallowed hard and climbed down into the tunnel. There was no light inside other than what little trickled down from the engine room. I was forced to have to crawl through the long, narrow tunnel. Dust and cobwebs sprang up to thwart my progress. Several times, I bumped my head on the ceiling, causing me to dip into my swear word repertoire. The ship shook. What was that? I shouted up to Minx, but I couldn't hear anything through the steel plating. I assumed that we had just been grabbed by the gravity well. That meant I only had about a minute before we hit atmosphere. I sped up my crawl. Just as I feared the tunnel would never end, I emerged into a small room. It was still too low for me to stand up in, and by now I had no light to see what was there. I groped around the room, hoping to find the landing jet controls. The ship shook again, only this time it continued shaking. The little room began to heat up rapidly. We hit atmosphere. I groped faster. My hand hit something. I could tell there were several switches on it, but I had no idea which ones did what. Since there wasn't time to figure it out, I activated all of them. If I'd thought the ship had shaken a lot before, it showed me how much more it could. I felt like a bobblehead doll on an off-road vehicle going over rocky terrain. The only question was, had I fired the jets up in time? It seemed forever that I shook inside that little coffin. I began to wish that the ship would just get it over with and crash. And then it did. I flew forward, my left shoulder crunching into the front wall. Metal plating came down on top of me, pinning me to the floor. And then, silence. No engine sounds, no light, just peaceful nothingness. It scared me to death. I feared that I might even be dead. Minx! I shouted. When I didn't hear an answer, I pushed against the plating on top of me. It moved, allowing me to crawl out from under it. I made it to the access tunnel, but the ship was now at a fairly steep angle. The narrowness of it worked to my advantage, though, allowing me to chimney climb up it and back to the engine room. Once I made it, I hung in the floor opening, panting. Minx, you overgrown blender, where are you? I shouted down toward the front of the ship. When he still didn't answer, I stood up and precariously balanced as I made my way down the hall. I figured that the ship had landed between a couple of hills, propping it up at almost a 45-degree angle. It made it quite difficult to walk down the hall without falling. A loose deck plate caught my foot, and the next thing I knew, I was bouncing down the corridor and into the control room. Ow! Are you okay, sir? Mink said from somewhere in the darkness. Usually when someone says ow, they're not okay. I rubbed my head and tried to see around me. I realized I was up against the front view screen of the control room. Why didn't you answer me when I called? I did. Didn't you hear me, sir? No. I would have come rescue you, but my left tread isn't working anymore. How many times was he going to rub that in? Well, I'm sorry, okay? I shouldn't have shot you. Feel better now? Not really, sir. After all this time that I have loyally served you, all you do is yell at me and shoot me. It's enough to make a bot feel unloved. Oh, give it a rest. Is your light still working?" For an answer, the light on the side of his head flared to life. After my eyes adjusted, I looked around to assess the damage. It didn't look good. My blaster pistol lay next to me, so I picked it up and tucked it back into my sash. I then grabbed onto the support pillar for the control panel and pulled myself up to it. After opening a bottom panel, I activated the emergency power switch. Red lights came on, as well as a few of the buttons on the control panel. At least something still works. I pulled myself further up until I could see the top of the controls. Well, it does look like the atmosphere is breathable, but barely. What is it, sir? It appears that 65% of the oxygen has been artificially produced. That would indicate that there is intelligent life here. I hear the Yshtari are very intelligent, sir. This would be an ideal planet for them to raid Earth space from. Or, I said, trying to keep some optimism going, it could be a pirate base. There are several in the vicinity. I doubt it, being this close to Yshtari space. You are just full of jolly thoughts, aren't you? I said as I climbed my way to the side hatch. I'm just trying to make sure you are aware of the gravity of the situation. I'm well aware, thank you, but your negativity is affecting my tremendous brain function. Minx made a clicking noise. It is too bad that I am programmed not to insult you, sir, because you just provided ample fodder for a witty comment. Thank goodness for small blessings. I made it to the side wall and found the hatch release button. I pushed it so that I could get a look at our new home. Nothing opened. I pushed the button several more times, but still the hatch remained shut. Why isn't it working? Perhaps because the nose of the ship is buried in sand, if I read the screen correctly. Minx had managed to pull himself up until he was looking at the screen on the other side of the control panel. Is there another way out of here? I asked. It had only been a week since I borrowed this ship from the impound yard on Perseus III. I hadn't had time to fully explore all the elements of this ship since I had been too busy preparing for my galactic protection business. There's an emergency hatch in the rear of the engine compartment. Great, I said, looking up. How can I climb back up there? I do have magnetic grapplers in my hands. I could pull you up, sir. As much as I hated the idea of Minx saving me from here, I knew it was the best way. Very well. I swung over to the other side of the console and put my arms around his neck. Get me out of here. Yes, sir, he said as he put his hands against the floor plates. They clunked into place, and he started pulling us up toward the engine compartment. It took longer than I thought, but we finally got there, and I found the emergency release lever. I pulled it and was rewarded with a shower of sand in my face. It wouldn't have been so bad except my mouth had been open. After spitting out as much as I could, I let go of Minx and climbed out onto the outer engine housing of the ship. A gust of wind almost blew me off, forcing me to have to squat down and grab onto the housing. A bright, yellow sun reflected off nothing but kilometers and kilometers of sand. Great, I've crash-landed on Arrakis. Arrakis, sir? Minx asked as he used his magnets to pull himself out of the hatch. Oh, according to my memory core, that was a fictional planet mentioned in a 20th century classic novel. You don't think the place actually exists? No, but we found the next best thing. As long as there aren't any sandworms, we should be okay, though. I stood back up and looked along the length of the ship. It appeared to be all in one piece, but the front half was completely buried in the sand. I supposed with the right parts and tools, it could be fixed and fly again. But where does one get parts on a nearly lifeless planet? With the artificially created oxygen, though, there had to be some kind of settlement here. The question was who lived in that settlement and how far away was it? I returned to study the dunes around us. Too bad we don't have a vehicle we can use to look for help. We do, sir, Minx informed me. There is a cargo hatch here in the rear of the ship. You are standing right on the door to it, sir. Excellent, I said, clapping my hands. How do you open it? Like this. Minx reached over and pulled up a lever embedded in the side of the ship. Before I could see what happened, I found myself hurtling through the air to land clumsily in the sand. I rolled several times before I stopped and looked up. That was when the metal door hit me in the head. I fell back down and grabbed my aching skull. Minx! I struggled back to my feet, still holding my throbbing forehead. Minx sat there on top of the ship, his LED smile beaming down at me. I swear, for a butler bot, you have some serious flaws in your hospitality, Chip. I did warn you, sir, that you were standing on the door. Well, you didn't have to open it while I was still there. But you asked how to open it. I showed you. You did that on purpose. You are a complete useless metal git, you know that? Yes, sir. You told me before. I brushed myself off and climbed up into the opened compartment. Sure enough, in all its beauty, sat a hover cycle complete with sidecar. Not only that, though, there was survival equipment and food. Evidently, Baron Rutherford had enough foresight to prepare for emergencies. I climbed up onto the cycle and checked its systems. Everything worked perfectly, including the scanners. Minx, we're in luck. Old Rutherford had excellent taste in hover cycles. This is a Yamaha HC 5500, top of the line. I must have smiled like a kid at Christmas as my hands gently caressed the controls. I'd always wanted one of these. Minx climbed down the side of the ship and nestled himself into the sidecar. I looked down at him. And where do you think you're going? I came to assist you, sir, as is in my programming. Your programming is to greet people at the door and to fix hors d'oeuvres. Would you rather I stayed here and tried to fix the ship then, sir? No. On second thought, you better come with me. Sometimes he just tried to be too helpful. I activated the power switch on the cycle and it hummed to life. A helmet and goggles hung on the handlebars, so I put them on and activated the scanner. I was rewarded with a bleep and a red dot on the screen. Aha! A settlement. It's only about 100 kilometers away. But any settlement on this planet will surely be of an illicit sort. That's why we'll ride up to it cautiously. With any luck, we'll find an abandoned pirate base where all the pirates were eaten by the Yshtari. Sir, that is rather morbid. It's survival. I adjusted the scanner controls to hone in on the settlement and see what species inhabited it. What I saw made my day. But in this case, what we have is a nice, big human settlement, not an Ishtar in sight. I snapped my goggles and twisted the throttle to send us speeding off across the dunes.
This has been a presentation of Big World Network. Visit us on BigWorldNetwork.com for more free weekly series, or follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening.
You're listening to Big World Network.